While the RTX 4070 is still not officially announced by Nvidia, they did release a slide talking about Nvidia Reflex technology coming out to Counter-Strike 2. I can't speak, it's the morning. Anyway, on that slide, well, there's an RTX 4070. So obviously at this point, that nobody's going to be shocked that the 4070 is real, but I thought it was funny that ahead of when it's officially supposed to have any kind of embargo leaks or anything, Nvidia does drop a slide here as reported by TheVerge.com, where I'm grabbing this from, with that on there. Anyway, it's cool to see Reflex technology coming to Counter-Strike 2 as well, since it never made its way into CSGO originally. It's especially in shooter games where that latency reduction technology is very interesting. And you can see, especially on cards like the GTX 1060, where it seems to be making a big difference, at least in this slide. We'll need to take a look at that. However, there is a bunch of other RTX 4070 leaks and rumors out as we get closer to the rumored April 13th launch date. So there had been a lot of specs leaked and some of them confirmed. It's now looking like the rest of the leaked specs have been confirmed in a leaked benchmark. This is showing the 5,888 CUDA cores and 12 gigabytes of memory and 21 gigabit per second speed on that memory. Being confirmed this time, it looks like through a leaked benchmark of a Geekbench score. Now, the score itself, Geekbench is not a great way to measure gaming performance, so it's not the best benchmark to go off of for overall performance. However, if you do take a look at it, this is showing it about 20% slower than the 4070 Ti, while costing $200 less, which is 25% less. So it does seem like it will, at least off of this leaked benchmark, be offering a little bit better price to performance than the 4070 Ti. And again, the rumored price on this is $599. I've gone into a lot of this details already in previous videos, so I don't want to get absolutely bogged down on going over predicted performance and price and whatnot. Again, the expectation based on this many CUDA cores and this kind of boost clock would be performance in the ballpark of an RTX 3080. And coming in, again, at the price of a 3070 Ti. So a bit of an improvement on price to performance compared to last gen and the other 40 series GPUs, but we'll have to wait for actual reviews to confirm all of that. Now, that being said, it does look like some specific GPU models of the 4070 are already leaking ahead of launch here at videocards.com. It looks like we're seeing a couple of MSI's designs here. Now, interestingly, one of these, if you look closely at it, has the 16-pin connector that NVIDIA has been wanting to move towards on their GPUs, but the other one has an 8-pin connector. This is the lower tiered of the two models. So it's looking like some of the partner cards will have the 8-pin connector and some will have the 16-pin connector, which also lines up to rumors that we had seen. But anyway, we should be seeing more of these soon. Again, the rumored date is April 13th. And hopefully some of these partner cards hit the actual MSRP at $599, which, while not an incredibly exciting MSRP, again, it does seem to point to at least slightly better value than what we've seen so far from the 4000 series. Also, we are seeing it reported in stock at some retailers, although the price points listed there don't seem to line up with anything like reality. So I think I would just take this as further confirmation that if it's being added to store listings, that they are probably coming soon. And let's go ahead and talk about something else. How about we had the Ryzen 7800X3D launch? And if you look at a variety of reviews, it generally seems to perform about the same as the 7950X3D in gaming, and a little bit ahead of the 13900K, although none of them are separated by so much that you'd really probably notice much difference while gaming. However, if you look at the price point of $449 MSRP versus the 7950X 3D, obviously, if you're just buying it for gaming, it makes no sense to get anything above the 7800X 3D, with the 7900X 3D being the weird version where it only has 6 of the gaming cores with the V-cache, putting it at a slight disadvantage, but still a higher price in gaming versus the 7800X 3D. Now, this is the Tom's Hardware results, but confirming it as a bit of a meta-analysis here. Tech Power Up, I'll show you the 720p results, but they had other results. All my sources will be in the description here. They're showing that with PBO enabled, and this is definitely the fastest one out there, gaining a few percent versus running at stock, and even at stock had it ahead of their 7950X 3D and ahead of the 13900K. But again, these aren't massive performance differences and all that, but it's the price point attached to that. Now, in application workloads and productivity workloads, the fact that this is only 8-core 16-thread puts it at a massive disadvantage compared to GPUs like the 7950X 3D or 13900K. But if you're buying a gaming CPU, a high-end gaming CPU, this does seem to be the one. Hardware Unboxed also, again, showing it roughly on par with this 7950X 3D. They had it 1 FPS, which is not even a single percent slower here in their 1080p average. And again, a little bit ahead of the 13900K. So overall, I'm very excited about the 7800X 3D, and I actually managed to order one. Again, I don't review CPUs, so I didn't get sent review samples of this. I will be upgrading my testing platform to the 7800X 3D, and I have one on the way. I was able to find one in stock when they launched. They seem to stay in stock for at least a little while on Newegg, at least, before going out of stock, and now there's just the higher priced scalper type listings. Definitely don't pay a scalper type price on those. If you could just, that's the last thing I'll mention. If the scalped price of a 7800X 3D goes past, the $600-ish point, you're getting close to the price of a 7950X 3D anyway. So definitely don't pay. I saw some stupid scalper pricing of like $800 on the 7800X 3D, and it's like, no, don't do that. Just buy it's not saying just buy a 7950X 3D. Probably just have a little patience and wait. But if you can't wait, don't spend a scalper price above that on that. Anyway, whatever. Let's just move along here. So speaking of AMD CPUs, how about the next gen? How about Zen 5? Well, Jim Keller, who did work on and design some of the Zen architecture, although has now moved on to another company, Tenstorrent, is talking about his company's chips in relation to projected performance of upcoming stuff like Zen 5. So from Jim Keller, who would be knowledgeable on the topic, we do get some performance estimates for some other architectures here. And in this slide, Zen 5 is showing up as the projected leader in integer calculations, which is what this is talking about. Now, when it goes into power usage, that's where he's talking about his company's performance per watt leadership, but he has AMD Zen 5 as a pretty large jump over Zen 4 and the overall winner in those integer calculations, which is pretty interesting. This is reported at Tom's Hardware, if you want to take a look at the article in my video description. Now, also, we have reports that Raja Koduri, who had worked at AMD in their graphics and then had switched over to Intel to help them get their art graphics out there, but has now left Intel. It looks like he is now going to be serving on the board of directors for Jim Keller's Tenstorrent company of the this slide fame that I just discussed. Now, don't get too confused though. Serving on the board of directors is not the same as like being a major like employee at the company. So it had been reported that Raj is starting up his own software company. The fact that he's on the board of directors for Tenstorrent does not mean he's not also just off starting up his own software company. My knowledge of boards of directors that they'd normally meet, maybe quarterly for a few hours, that type of thing. It's not, anyway. Let's move on to, how about Intel? There was rumors that with Raja Koduri leaving and some of the troubles that Alchemist GPUs had, that maybe we wouldn't, is Intel throwing in the towel? Well, it does not appear to be the case. We're seeing it reported that Intel Battlemage and Celestial GPUs are already booked at TSMC. So TSMC would be the actual company building the chips themselves, right? Nvidia and AMD also are making their GPUs at TSMC as well. So this is reporting that Intel is buying they're booking space at TSMC for Battlemage and Celestial. So it looks like there is no reason to believe we won't be seeing those. When it comes to the timing on those, it's looking like the rumors are Battlemage happening in the second half of 2024 and Celestial coming in the second half of 2026. So it does look like every 2 years release cycle, which is similar to what we see from AMD and Nvidia. I'll be excited to see how they do. I'm hoping that they continue to price themselves aggressively, and as they shore up some of their software support, especially on older games and things like that, I think it could be exciting to see the future of the GPU business with hopefully 3 strong competitors in it. We're also seeing it reported that Intel could be having an Arc Pro A60 GPU coming out soon. This would be stronger than the current Pro GPUs that are out so far, keeping in mind this is the professional lineup rather than the gaming lineup. So you could see how the A60 rumored specs here would be 16 Xe cores versus what's currently out there with only 8 Xe cores. So you would expect to be doubling the performance here. So that would be cool. Now, this is interesting. So the ROG Ally. So I really like the Steam Deck, but I'm also interested in newer handhelds coming out with more performance available. I really like the Steam Deck's software support from Valve. It's really cool. But like I said, it would be like, I wish it had an OLED screen. It would be nice to see what it could do with like RDNA3 iGPU, but Valve has stated that they're probably going to be sticking with the same, at least, performance specs on their Steam Deck for a while. I think they want to treat it more like a console where game developers can target that specific performance tier for Steam Deck support and have that not be a moving target too quickly. Whereas competitors, like now the ROG Ally coming from Asus, could shoot for the latest and greatest in terms of performance. Now, on LTT, we got a hands-on look at the ROG Ally, and it looked to be pretty powerful and well-designed. Now, it's also looking like Dave2D got his hands on this, and he was able to give out more actual spec information. He's saying it's a 4nm APU with Zen4 CPU and RDNA3 graphics. So this would be the next gen, the Steam Deck, for example, only using RDNA2 graphics. And what is it, like Zen 2 Plus CPU architecture, that kind of thing. So that is extremely interesting. I'm really excited to see what RDNA3 APUs are capable of. It's also, in the Linus Tech Tips video, said to offer 50% higher performance than the Steam Deck at 15 watts. And then if you allow it to go up to 35 watts, which is just higher power than what the Steam Deck can do, they're saying it can offer twice the performance of the Steam Deck. So very interesting stuff. Now, in this kind of form factor, you do care about battery life, so you might not want to be running at 35 watts all the time. But certainly in the higher-end AAA games, or if you're just playing on the couch and you're near somewhere you could plug in, that would be pretty cool. It's also noticed that in this screenshot during the LTT video, you can see RSR support listed right here. So RSR is basically the spatial upscaling. It's like applying FSR, but on the driver level, meaning it's unlike a native game implementation. Things like the HUD elements and menus would also have to be upscaled, rather than in a true FSR implementation, you would be able to run things like the post-processing menus and HUDs at native resolution. Anyway, it looks like that's supported right there in the little command center that they've got going here. I'm really excited to see what next-gen APUs can do. We're also seeing the GPD Win Max next-gen, also competitor to this, mobile gaming PC form factor kind of thing. Rumored to have the Ryzen 7 7840U, which would have a Phoenix APU with, again, the RDNA3 graphics. So that's the rumor there. This appears to be leaked in a Geekbench result, showing that that here. So interesting stuff. I'm really interested in these upcoming RDNA3 APUs. Speaking of which, we're seeing the Ryzen 5 7540U Zen4 Phoenix APU, which would have a 740M integrated RDNA3 GPU. So this would be one of the kind of lower end ones with the 740M, not as many of the cores. This has been spotted in a couple of benchmark leaks here as well. Again, none of these are real gaming benchmarks where we get a huge amount of performance information. But again, if like the ROG Ally one is something to go off of, if it's true that it could offer double the performance of the Steam Deck or 50% more at the same 15 watts, that does speak to some pretty good generational uplift there. Now, one thing that's confusing though on AMD's 7000 series mobile chips though, is which ones are actually the newest generation of Zen 4 CPU. Because some of their 7000 series come with Zen 3 CPUs, or I think they can even go down to Zen 2 Plus CPUs, things like that. It looks like AMD is trying to make that easier to spot by putting an orange sticker if it's actually a Zen 4 based 7000 series CPU. So I guess that helps. So you could at least distinguish it based on the color of the sticker. However, I'm not sure how much the uneducated, just random consumer will know to look for the orange sticker versus the not orange sticker any better than they knew how to look for the number after the 7, which was the other way to tell. So anyway, that is what it is. So another interesting thing we've seen here is Nvidia releasing a video showing off the RT Overdrive mode, the fully path-traced Cyberpunk 2077 update, which we're expecting on April 11th. This looks really cool. Now, they show off some side-by-sides. Now, I'm going to play a little bit of this. This is an RTX 4090 at 4K. They're showing it, native and then with DLSS 3, right? So if you're looking at those native numbers, we saw as low as like 17. It didn't show anything higher than in the 30 FPS range running at native 4K on the RTX 4090. Now, obviously, if you then use DLSS performance and then use frame generation, you can now get some massive performance boosts, although keep in mind that frame generation isn't truly a performance boost, it's a motion smoothing boost, and then the DLSS performance does actually increase performance, but again, at a cost to image quality. So I'm really excited I really want to test this thing out when it comes out. Are you guys interested in that on the channel, getting some benchmarks on the RT Overdrive Cyberpunk update? I certainly want to take a look at that. Also, I'd be interested in what could the 4090 do at 1440p? Because maybe it's getting crushed at native 4K, but how well could it run it natively at 1440p? Because there's a lot of people who, I understand that a lot of people buy the 4090 for 4K, but there's also a lot of people who buy it for high refresh 1440p. Now, in other news, we saw Gamers Nexus review the Amazon Basics CPU cooler. So Amazon is getting into CPU coolers now. I think I also saw a review of this from Tom's Hardware. So these are out now. Basically, it's a Cooler Master cooler. It's a low-end Cooler Master cooler. So does it cool things? Yes. If it happens to be the cheapest thing available, or somebody who doesn't really want to do a lot of research on a CPU cooler buys one, it will cool a CPU. And doesn't cost a huge amount of money. It's probably not the absolute best performance in its price class, but hey, it seems to be at least something that you don't have to laugh at somebody if they buy it. It is an actual CPU cooler. Now, it's speaking of GPUs, let's go to GPU cooler model. Or speaking of coolers, let's go to GPU cooler models. We're seeing the RTX 4080 and 4070 Ti coming from Gainward with their Panther edition. So personally, I like not a lot of RGB and kind of just all black PCs. That's one of the ways I like to go on things. So these kind of stand out to me as I like the look of it. Obviously, it doesn't fit everyone's build style, but there you go. So if you're looking for an all-black 4080 or 4070 Ti, you've got the Panther coming up from Gainward. Now, if you're on the AMD side of things and you're looking for a white GPU, it looks like Asrock is launching the RX 7900 XTX Taichi white 24GB OC graphics card. So if you're looking more for the white with some RGB look, and you're going the AMD route, there you go. That looks very nice as well. And then last little bits of news here. We've got WebGPU Advanced Graphics API supported by a beta version of Chrome. So the idea here is that, web browsers are almost getting to the point of full-blown operating systems, right? Especially with something like Chrome OS. But even if you're just running Chrome on your Windows PC, the kinds of things that a browser can do are getting pretty crazy, including even running games or heavily, accelerated stuff within the browser itself. Well, it looks like WebGPU is an API designed to give lower-level access to the GPU hardware to the browser. I think that's the idea of what's going on there, which is kind of interesting. And if you missed it, there was a AMD driver that came out recently with some optimizations for The Last of Us Part 1, so make sure you didn't miss that if you're trying to run that game. And I hope all of you have an excellent day. I have to get a whole bunch of benchmarking done this weekend, so we'll see how many videos I'm able to get out. I hope all of you have an excellent day.